So it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Courtney De Ronde. Courtney's been a fabulous speaker with us, and I've had the pleasure of working with her over the last 5 years. Courtney is a CPA and managing partner of TDT CPA and Advisors, which is a boutique advisory and accounting firm that focuses on small business and nonprofits. She specifically understands that small business owners can become overwhelmed, but they also need to be successful leaders and maximize their financial information. Courtney is responsible for the firm's vision and strategic direction. Her personal background includes almost 2 decades of serving small business and nonprofits. And as an owner of a firm and a managing partner, she knows firsthand knowledge and has experience in scaling a small business. So, Courtney, thank you for being here today. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Christina. Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here with you this morning. All right, we are going to get started. I got to move one window out of the way here. All right. Well, in the spring of 2018, I transitioned from leading our audit practice and serving clients, as Christina mentioned, to launching a new practice, an advisory practice within our firm. Shortly thereafter, I transitioned the leadership of that unit to a colleague. And then I transitioned again to a full-time role in business development and firm-wide leadership. All of that was in preparation for my current role as CEO and managing partner here at TDT. It was a time of a lot of transitions. The way I spent my time changed dramatically over those couple of years. I found myself in and out of meetings, writing and creating content, creating sales proposals, meeting with prospective clients and referral sources, drafting internal communications, external communications, working on visioning and strategic planning, all kinds of different things. During that same time, we moved our office, and I also moved my family from Pella to Des Moines. It was wild. I had no structure to my calendar. I was constantly switching gears. I'd go from an internal operations meeting right on to a discovery call with a prospect, and then I'd write content or I'd review a proposal. Meetings, appointments, dedicated time to work on projects, it was all crammed into my calendar wherever and whenever there was an empty spot. What I couldn't get finished during the day, I picked back up in the evening or early in the morning or on the weekend. As I went through those days, I captured all kinds of ideas and notes and thoughts and to-dos, but I captured them all over the place on my iPad, on one of half a dozen different legal pads I had going, on the agendas of the meetings I was at, all over the place. I would check my email in between meetings or on my phone in line at the grocery store, before work, after work, anywhere. And mostly I was checking, I don't know why, just to see what was there, to see what could maybe stress me out or what was new and exciting. I wasn't actually going to do anything with the emails. I usually didn't have time, or I wasn't in the right state of mind, or I didn't have the information I needed to actually address the emails or do anything with them. So those messages stayed in my inbox along with literally thousands of others for me to deal with when I had time. My calendar, my inbox, my notes, my to-do lists were absolutely out of control. I had no system for doing anything with all of that stuff. I bounced back and forth between those wide-ranging tasks that I mentioned, different ways of thinking, all day, every day. And what I had was this constant nagging feeling that I was forgetting something or that I was going to drop a ball. I was always busy. I never felt fully prepared. I never felt rested. I was overwhelmed, and I was starting to wonder, how in the world can I sustain this pace? Then I read a book by Michael Hyatt called Free to Focus. And I started using the full focus system, which is what we're going to talk about today. I ditched all those legal pads and my iPad, and I started taking a hard copy planner with me everywhere. I used it to capture all my notes, all my to-dos in that one place. And then I got in the habit of reflecting and planning every day, every week, and every quarter. I also created an ideal week where I batch similar ways of working and thinking, so I stopped wasting energy switching gears all throughout the day and all throughout the week. I put boundaries around my work time, including no more work on nights, weekends, or vacation. I learned to prioritize and focus on what to do. I also set goals and I wrote them down. And then I started reviewing them every morning as part of a consistent morning routine, right there along with my cup of coffee, reading my daily devotional, exercise, getting myself and my kids out the door. I started processing my email inbox just a few set times each day. And when I leave work, I leave work. I have learned the difference between time management and energy management. I've learned the power of habits and the power of rest and rejuvenation. I've learned that I can succeed at work and at life. It's not one or the other. My name is Courtney De Ronde, and I am here today because I want you to experience that same sense of clarity and purpose that I do each week. And so today, I'm going to teach you the top 5 ways to reach your most ambitious goals and achieve the lifestyle that you desire. Now, before I explain how, let me start by just acknowledging that your story and your obstacles might not look like mine or like the others attending today's event or those of you watching the recording later. But there are some common pain points that bring people to a presentation like this. So maybe you're here today because you're tired of those to-dos slipping through the cracks, and you, like me, had that perpetual sense that you are forgetting something. Maybe you're just feeling directionless in your career or your life. You just feel like you're going through the motions and life is just passing you by. Maybe you're too busy. Your to-do list never seems to get any shorter. You start the day stressed, you end the day stressed and exhausted. You know you're on the road to burnout, but you're not sure how to get ahead so you can finally rest. You're tired of trying harder and feeling like you're just getting further behind. Maybe you feel held hostage by inescapable distractions. You know what you should be doing, but you just never seem to make the right progress. Or maybe you're the person who has put your dreams up on the shelf and you want to get there someday, but just year after year, someday never seems to come. I get it. Like I said, I have been there. But when I started using the full focus system, I discovered that there are practical things that I can do to solve those problems, and you can too. So here we go. Here is what I mean. We're going to talk today about creating a central storehouse. We drop tasks for one of 2 reasons. Either we're not capturing them at all, or we're capturing them, like I was, in way too many places. So you need a central storehouse. For me, it's the full focus planner. But the key is to have one central storehouse. You don't have to use the full focus planner, but you have to pick one tool that is your place for keeping things. If you're coming here feeling like you're lost and directionless, then we're going to talk about creating actionable goals, ones that are exciting that you just can't wait to pursue. Goal achievement is one of the core concepts of the full focus system. And so today I'm going to teach you the smarter framework that empowers a really a full goal setting system for your whole life, not just for creating work goals. The key to breaking free of that to-do treadmill is not completing your to-do list. Let me say that again. The key of breaking free of the to-do treadmill is not completing everything on the to-do list. That's just not going to happen. The key is taking control of the to-do list. And what we're going to talk about today is how the full focus system prompts us to stop trying to check everything off the list and instead intentionally decide what smaller list of items should you be working on. You need clarity. So when we're talking about shortening down this list, we have to realize that what we work on matters. We can't do everything. And so narrowing down our list creates freedom. Now, if you are somebody who is struggling with that inescapable distraction, we're going to talk today about how creating consistent practices builds self-accountability. When you have that shorter, much shorter to-do list, it makes it harder to let yourself off the hook when you switch to easier tasks. And then finally, if you're someone who has put your dreams up on the shelf, then after today, I hope that you will dust them off, because today we're going to talk about how you can turn those dreams into smarter goals and break those goals down into weekly and daily actions. So it is no exaggeration to say that the full focus system has changed my life and the lives of many of my friends, colleagues, and family members. That's part of the reason that I wanted to do this presentation today, is that over the last couple of years, people have been asking me, what are you doing? And I've told them about the full focus system and the book Free to Focus. And they have started using the tools and the practices that we're going to talk about today. And it is changing people's lives. It's getting people out of chaos and moving towards intention. And so I wasn't out there preaching about this. People could see I was showing up differently. I wasn't overwhelmed. I wasn't dropping balls. I had figured out some way to win at work and succeed in my personal life. And they wanted to know what it was. And so I wanted to share that with all of you today. And that's where we're going to go next. So, what is this full focus system? It is a goal achievement and productivity framework. So we're going to talk about both of those things today, achieving goals and having productivity and focus. The system is embodied in the Full Focus Planner, which is a physical tool that helps you execute the system, but you do not have to have the planner. So it's a tool that you can use to execute on these 5 practices that we're going to talk about, but it's not required. You can use a bullet journal, another planner, a legal pad, whatever you want. But the key is that you have one physical tool where you are capturing all of these things that we're going to talk about. So you don't have to have the planner, but it is a handy tool if you're interested in it. But you don't have to have that in order to execute these top 5 ways to reach your most ambitious goals and achieve the lifestyle you desire. So the full focus system is built on 5 key practices that are going to change the way that you work and live. So we're going to go through those 5 practices now. The first practice is goal setting. Simply put, setting better goals gets you headed in the right direction. When you have goals that you're working towards, you are clear about what matters most, and you can get excited for where you're going. So that never-ending to-do list all of a sudden gets filtered down to what is most important and what are my priorities. This starts by determining, what are your priorities? What are your goals? What do you want to achieve? Lots of people try to set goals and then they lose momentum. But we don't just drift to where we're wanting to go. We have to be intentional. And that's what's wrong with a lot of resolutions, New Year's resolutions. So here we are, January 26th. Most people, the majority of people, abandon their New Year's resolution a week and a half ago already. And we're not even to the end of the first month. That's because they set vague intentions. What we're going to talk about now in this goal setting practice is getting really clear about what you want, why it's important, and setting steps for how you're going to get there. So the first step in this goal setting practice is to commit to writing your goals down. So you have to actually write it down in your planner, in your journal, wherever it is that you're using it. Write it down. Writing goals down makes a huge difference. First, it gives you clarity. It forces you to clarify, what is it that I want? Helps you overcome resistance, motivates you to start taking action. It can serve as a filter for all the other opportunities that you have coming your way. And it allows you to see and celebrate your progress. But how you write your goals matters. So, what we're going to talk about next is the SMARTER framework. This is the way that the full focus system has us write our goals. So, how goals are written matters. To be most effective, every goal that we write should meet these 7 criteria that make up the acronym SMARTER. And you've probably heard of SMART goals. This is a modification of that system. So first, the first S stands for specific. So as I mentioned, a lot of times what we call goals are really just vague intentions. We have to get specific. So we don't want to say, open a new location or lose weight or get healthy. We want to be specific in our goals. We want them to be measurable. That's what the M stands for, measurable. I'm sure you heard that you can't improve what you can't measure. So when we quantify the results that we want, it makes it possible for us to measure our progress and success. It also prompts us to change the tactics that we're taking if we aren't seeing progress and success. The A stands for actionable. Goals that are actionable don't describe a state of being, but a state of doing. So these are verb words. So we're starting with things like launch or eliminate, create, not things like to be or to have or to become. Those are states of being. We want our goals to be actionable, to prompt us to do something. The first R stands for risky. So not realistic, which the SMART framework teaches. We want them to be risky. If our goals are risky, they require us to think outside the box and be creative. We have to find additional resources, and that prompts us to grow. So if we already know everything we need to do for a goal, it's probably not risky enough. It needs to be something that is going to push us and have us grow. The T stands for time bound. So time facilitates focus and adds urgency. When we have a near-term deadline, it forces us to focus and creates urgency. When the deadline's too far off, it just encourages us to procrastinate. The next E is around exciting. So exciting goals drive our motivation and persistence. So we're going to face obstacles when we create smarter goals. So they need to be exciting enough that we keep going when we face those obstacles. And then the last R stands for relevant. So this is really a gut check. Is this goal relevant to my stage of life, my values, what I'm passionate about, the demands on my time, and the other goals that I have set? This is about a gut check of, is this relevant for what I'm doing right now? So just a couple examples of smarter goals to give you the feel for what this would be like. Set aside 15 minutes in the morning, 6 days a week for reading and prayer or meditation starting January 1st. So that fits all the smarter framework. Now, whether or not it's risky and relevant is going to depend on the individual. That might not be risky to you. Maybe you already do that. That's not a smarter goal for you then. But for somebody who hasn't ever done anything like that or hasn't done it consistently, that might be risky. So, risky and relevant are definitely within the eye of the goal setter. So, that is the smarter framework. And that is the first practice in the full focus system is to set smarter goals. Decide what you want, why you want it, and write it down so that you can measure your progress against it. All right. The second practice is creating constraints. Constraints force us to be creative and think outside the box. When we put limitations on things, we have to figure out a new way of doing things. They force us to prioritize as well. Getting clear about what really matters to us is the key to being more productive. So, most of us have this constant laundry list of things to do. So, 10, 20, 30 items to accomplish in a single day, and it's overwhelming. So, we usually work on the most immediate or the easiest tasks first. And then what happens is our high leverage, important tasks get ignored, or we just keep pushing them off to the future. And then our most important priorities never get accomplished. It's frustrating, it's defeating, it makes us suffer in our business and in our personal lives. And at the same time, we're still getting maybe 5, 6 tasks completed off the list, but it barely makes a dent in the overall list. So it feels like it's endless. It's like we're running at full sprint and we're still always a step behind. This leads to exhaustion and burnout. And we all need a way to focus our attention on the things that are most important to us every day, every week, and every quarter. And that's where the power of 3 comes in the full focus system. The power of 3 refers to the incredible boost in focus and productivity that we get when we narrow down to just 3 tasks, objectives, goals, or key projects, just 3 of them for a given period of time. So this includes a quarterly big 3, a weekly big 3, and a daily big 3. So daily big 3, these are the 3 most important tasks to be completed on any given day. You can do other lower leverage tasks, the other 5 or 6 things, after you've concentrated on your daily big 3 first. So you're setting out your intention. We're going to talk more in a little bit about how you do this and when you do this. You are setting out your intentions about what are the 3 most important things I need to do today. And you're focusing on those first before you let other lower leverage tasks come into play. The weekly big 3 is setting the 3 most important things for you to accomplish this week. So this could be progress towards a goal for the quarter. It could be a major task or a project, but it's key. The key is that it is an important priority for this week. And then finally, the quarterly big 3. So these are the 3 most important goals or projects that you want to accomplish in a given quarter. So they're usually annual goals or projects that support annual goals, but it could be any major project that requires sustained effort over a 3-month period. So how does this work? You're going to start with higher level priorities. So when you set your daily big 3, you should have already set your weekly big 3. And you're going to look at your weekly big 3 in reviewing what do you need to do today. When you set your weekly big 3, you're going to go up a level to your quarterly big 3. What did I say is most important this quarter? And when you set that quarterly big 3, you're going to look at your annual goals. So each time you set a big 3, you're looking a level higher. The key is to ask yourself, what can I do today or this week or this quarter that's going to advance my highest priorities, which are going to be key projects or initiatives or goals that you set, smarter goals that you set from the first key concept. All right, so this second key is creating constraints. No more are we going to have this never ending, perpetually growing to-do list. We're going to pick the big 3 for each quarter, each week, and each day. All right, the next 2 practices go together, reflection and planning. So we integrate these 2 practices because we learn from the past and let it shape our strategies and decisions for the future. So we're going to talk about reflection and planning together. This is done through a weekly and quarterly preview process. So a lot of us start the week with a burst of energy and maybe a vague idea of what we want to accomplish. And typically by Monday afternoon, it's all out the window. After that, we go through our week just reacting to whatever is urgent and whatever is in our face interrupting us. This leaves little time for those higher priorities. And try as we might, even the most enthusiastic of us fall further and further behind, and it feels defeating. So the weekly preview is designed to help us eliminate this problem by pairing reflection on what's happened with planning for the next period of time, in this case, the next week. So with this process, you start celebrating the success that you had, learning from what didn't work, and then setting your expectations for the coming week. So as a result of going through this process, which I'm going to describe here in a minute, as a result of doing the weekly preview, now you have an actionable, intentional plan that you can reference all throughout the next week, reminding yourself what you said was most important. All right, so the weekly preview process. So there's 6 steps that I'm going to go through. 6 steps for the weekly preview process. Step 1, write down your biggest wins. Write them down, okay? Don't just think about them, write them down in your journal, in your planner, your bullet notebook, whatever it is. This step is first because you want to start this process celebrating what worked last week. What did you accomplish? What felt good? Too often, especially high achievers, move right on to the next week and forget to acknowledge the success that they've seen. So this is a practice of really creating a mindset around abundance and possibility and acknowledging what went really well. So write down your 3, 5, 7 biggest wins. Step 2, you're going to go through an after action review. So this step, you're going to reflect and capture lessons learned from the last week. So you're going to look back at the big 3 that you set for the week. How far did you get? Did you accomplish all 3? Did you get 2 out of 3? Did you get 2 and 50% of the third? Acknowledge, write it down. What were my big 3 and how far did I get? Then you're going to think about what worked and what didn't. And you're going to write down, what will I keep? What will I stop? What will I start? And what will I improve? So we are doing this after action review as our second step after we've celebrated our wins. So we're going to look back at last week and we're going to write down how far we got and what are we going to do differently or continue doing the same for the next week. Step 3. Step 3 is the list sweep. This is probably my favorite part of the weekly preview because it was so helpful to me. As I mentioned at the beginning, I had all these notes all over the place and I didn't have any way of doing anything with them. The list sweep is where you're going to revisit all of the to-dos and the notes and the tasks that you wrote down from the prior week. That's why it's important to have that central storehouse, the planner, the journal, whatever it is that you choose. You have one place where you keep your notes, your daily big 3, your weekly big 3, your tasks, your to-dos. And in the weekly preview, you're going to go back through your whole week of notes and tasks and to-dos. And if they're already done and checked off, you can ignore them. But if they're not, you have to decide, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to carry it over to this week's to-do list? Are you going to delete it and be like, never mind, not important? Are you going to delegate it to somebody else to do? Do you need to calendar something? Do you need to put something on your calendar to get this completed? What do you need to do? So this list sweep allows you to go through your whole week, writing things down and capturing things in your central storehouse without worrying that you're going to let something fall through the cracks. Because you know, at least once a week, when you do your weekly preview, you're going to go back through it all and address it. The fourth step of 6, so fourth step, is to do a weekly overview. So this is where you're going to look ahead to next week and acknowledge the events, deadlines, upcoming important tasks that you have for next week. And you're going to write them down. So you're not writing down everything that's on your calendar for next week. You're just taking, Monday through Sunday and noting what are the key things that are going to happen next week, especially if they're weird or unusual or really important. You're going to take note of that and write it down. The fifth step, decide on your big 3 for next week. So you're going to be thinking about, what is important to me? What is urgent to me? What could I do from my annual or quarterly goals this coming week? You're going to be using every step that we've done from here, 1 through 4, and a look back at your goals to determine what are your weekly big 3, and you're going to write them down. And then last, create an intentional plan for your self-care. So when are you going to sleep? When are you going to go to bed? When are you going to get up? What are you going to eat? When are you going to exercise? What are you going to do for your exercise? In what ways are you going to connect with your family, your friends, your colleagues? And in what ways are you going to relax? That's the 6th step, is to create an intentional plan for the week of how you're going to care for yourself. So that is the weekly preview. It's recommended that you set aside 30 minutes each week, sometime between Friday afternoon and Monday morning, to complete this 6-step weekly preview process. This is where we are combining these 3rd and 4th steps, where we are reflecting on what has happened and we are planning for the next week. So some people like to do that Friday afternoon before they leave for the weekend. Some people like to do it Sunday evening. Some people like to do it Monday morning. It doesn't matter when you do it, as long as you do it sometime between the end of your week and the start of your next week. And maybe it'll take more than 30 minutes as you get used to this, but definitely as you get going, 30-minute block of time on your calendar to do this is more than enough. And you just create the habit of doing this process every week. The quarterly preview is to the quarter what the weekly preview is to the week. So very similar process. There's a couple of additional steps. I'm not going to go through all of the steps in detail on this, but you get the idea, to where you are reflecting back on the quarter, capturing the wins, capturing the lessons learned, looking ahead at what is big and coming up, looking at your annual goals and your calendar, and setting your quarterly big 3. So that is the reflection and planning key concept or key practice. All right, number 5. This is the last practice. This practice is automation. I'm not talking about machines here or technology. I'm talking about self-automation. So this is the key to completing daily tasks and prioritizing self-care, but in a simple way. Self-automation is all about creating habits. So self-automation describes this process of applying automation to personal behavior. So typically we think of automation as a routine activity that could be handled by a machine. So the autoresponder on your email, or the auto answer on a voice menu. When we automate those things, it saves time and it saves energy, because those things are put on autopilot. Well, those same concepts can be applied to us as individuals. So some of our behaviors can be put on autopilot so that they just happen automatically. We don't have to give any conscious thought. We give very little effort when we self-automate some of our behaviors. So self-automation in the full focus system shows up in daily rituals and the ideal week. And I'm going to talk about those next. It also shows up in what we just talked about with the weekly and quarterly previews. That is a form of self-automation where you just routinely go through that same process every week and every quarter. So that's also self-automation. But these last two that I'm going to talk about are daily rituals and an ideal week. So before I get into those details, I just want to explain a little bit more about this concept, because I know for people, habits and self-automation versus willpower can sometimes be hard to buy into. So a lot of times, high achievers have a pretty clear idea of what they want to accomplish on any given day. But life is busy and hectic and crazy, and we often find ourselves just reacting to whatever is coming our way. Small but important actions can get lost in the shuffle. It's especially true when we're trying to achieve big goals that require consistent, sustained effort. So getting out of rhythm makes us feel disoriented, and it's easy to give up. And as high achievers, we often do a very predictable solution, and that's just to work more. Work harder and harder in an effort to try to get more done. But we get caught in a time energy paradox. So the time energy paradox describes the simple phenomenon that time is fixed, but energy actually flexes. So working longer or harder is an attempt to stretch time. So if 8 hours isn't enough, we work 9. If 5 days isn't enough, we work 6 or 7. But we can't stretch time. It's impossible. There's a finite number of days, hours in a day, or weeks in a year. And so what that means is the extra time that we spend working comes at a cost. Those late hours or those weekends can't be recovered for rest and rejuvenation, or time with your family, or time for hobbies or other important goals. Time is fixed, but energy flexes. And it's possible for us to recharge and increase our energy. And that's where self-automation comes in. When we form good habits and strong daily rituals, it automates those small but important behaviors that might otherwise slip through the cracks. So habits work by transferring these routine decisions and tasks to our subconscious. So this is the opposite of willpower. Willpower requires us to make a conscious decision. And that comes from what scientists call the executive function of the brain. So that's the function that is governed by the prefrontal cortex of our brain. But most of our body's functions, even elective actions, have nothing to do with executive function. They're governed by a vast network of subconscious controls. These systems are highly resistant to executive control. So willpower can't control them, or at least not for very long. That's why it's hard to stick with these things if you're relying on willpower. But the good news is it's possible to tap into that part of our brain that does things automatically. This is where rituals and the ideal week come in. Rituals are a chain of habits that multiply the power of one simple habit. So there's 4 daily rituals that really form the foundation of a successful day in the full focus system. The morning ritual, the workday startup ritual, the workday shutdown ritual, and the evening ritual. So each of these rituals are designed to help us manage our energy, not our time, manage our energy. They provide structure for our day, and they help us to focus. So I don't have time to go into all the details of each ritual, but I want to just give you a little bit more information on the morning ritual and the workday startup, and then you can kind of get the idea for the other two. So the morning ritual, this starts when you wake up and continues through when you arrive at work. This typically includes things like making a cup of coffee, meditation, or reading a daily devotional, journaling. It could be eating breakfast, getting your kids and yourself ready for school and for work, reviewing your goals, selecting your big three for the day. The key is that you have chosen a consistent time and series of habits to start your day. And that way you're not neglecting these self-care habits and you're not wasting energy trying to figure out what do I need to do this morning. What I described to you back in 2018, I had some days where I had to be an hour and a half away at 7:30 in the morning. Sometimes I had coffee across town at 8:15. Sometimes I had my first meeting didn't start until 9. It was all over the place. So every night before I went to bed, I would look at my phone and say, where do I have to be and what time? So what time do I have to get up? Because I didn't go to bed at a consistent time. I didn't get up at a consistent time. And it took energy to even think about where do I need to go and when do I need to be there. So instead, I created a consistent morning ritual that I get up at the same time every day. I don't start my meetings until a certain time every day. So for me, it's 8:30. So 8 to 8:30 is blocked on my calendar for my workday startup. And for me, from 5 to 8 in the morning, that is my 3 hour morning ritual. Now, you don't have to have a 3 hour morning ritual. You could have 45 minutes. It doesn't matter. It's what it is for you. What do you need to do to consistently start your day? And the key is to have it be consistent so it gets onto autopilot. The workday startup, that 30 minutes at the beginning of my day, this is where I'm processing my email inbox, checking my Teams messages, or for those of you that use Slack, whatever your IM software is. This is where I am looking at my daily big three, or for some people, it's setting the daily big three. But the key is that I'm starting up, all my apps and getting logged in, and I have this 30 minutes block before I start any meetings. Shutdown, very similar process at the end of the day. And then evening ritual is, again, a set of specific things that you do to prepare yourself to get the rest and rejuvenation that you need so you can start off on the right foot in the morning with your daily ritual or with your morning ritual. All right. Last thing we're going to talk about here, and this is part of the fifth key component of the full focus system, where we're talking about automation, is planning an ideal week. So the ideal week is a tool where we can really think about our major priorities, standing meetings or appointments, and typical activities in an ideal week. So it's a target to work towards. We're not going to meet our ideal week 100% of the time. That's why it's called ideal. But what we're doing is taking time to think about what we want to design our week to look like. So I mentioned in the beginning, I was switching gears constantly. It takes a ton of energy to switch gears between different types of tasks and different ways of thinking. So when we task switch, moving from one thing to the next, we have no cohesion and our week gets disjointed and everything just runs together and we just try to stay afloat. So when we create an ideal week, we're using batching and planning. So batching is when we're taking similar, smaller tasks and we're doing them together. So like I mentioned in the Workday Startup, batching together email and responding to IMs. I don't process email and respond to IMs all throughout the day. I do it in my Workday Startup, in my Workday Shutdown, and in a half-hour time frame midday after lunch. It could be different for you. You design your ideal week, but the key is I have combined similar types of tasks in certain places. But it's not just administrative tasks, it's also with other categories of work. So when we talk about mega batching, this is where we're batching tasks, but on a larger scale. So we're setting aside bigger chunks of time, not just 30 minutes, bigger chunks of time, half days, full days, 2-3 hour increments, where we are going to do similar tasks. So this could be like holding all of your one-on-one meetings with your direct reports on Wednesday afternoon, or dedicating an entire day for a certain type of project work. So in order to do this, you're going to take your type of work that you have and divide it into things that are high leverage, very important, administrative, and then personal. So there's four steps I'm going to go through, and then this will be the end of this part of it. 4 steps to create your ideal week. First, think about your current reality. So what makes a week good or bad? Think about that. Step 2, group similar work together. So list all your regular tasks, use those 3 categories: what's high leverage, what's administrative, what's personal. And from there, group things together that require a similar type of focus, that will save your energy because you're not task switching. Third, map out your priorities. So think about what is most important. Take your high leverage work and put it in time blocks of your week where you have the most energy. So if you have the most energy in the morning, put your high leverage blocks in the mornings. If it's the afternoon, do it in the afternoon for you, but match up where you have the most energy with your most important priorities and high leverage work. And then the other items can go into times where you have less energy. And then finally, everything else can just be filled in. So that key to this self-automation is creating habits and rituals and creating an ideal week. So we're putting some of our behaviors on autopilot, which allows us to not let things fall through the cracks. It creates more intention. We can do what we want to do without thinking about it. It takes way less energy. All right, so those 5 key practices that we talked about this morning so that we can reach our most ambitious goals and achieve the lifestyle that we desire. So first we talked about goal setting using the SMARTER framework, determining what it is that you want and why, and creating actionable goals that you can actually execute on. Next, we talked about creating constraints. So this is where we're tossing aside that ever-growing to-do list and saying, what are the 3 things I have to do this quarter? What are the 3 things I have to do this week? What are the 3 things I have to do today? Then 3 and 4, we put together. This is the weekly preview and the quarterly preview, where we are combining reflection on what has happened and how we can learn from that, and also sweeping our list with planning for the next week and being intentional about what we want to do in the following week. And then last, we talked about automation, where we're using rituals and an ideal week to save ourselves energy and put some of these things on autopilot. So those are the 5 key practices for reaching your most ambitious goals and achieving the lifestyle that you desire. Now, I know this can be overwhelming, and I just want you to know that when I learned about this a few years ago, I didn't jump in and execute on all of these things at once. That's just not realistic. So if you're wondering where to start, I encourage you to start by getting a central storehouse. So whether that's a full focus planner or some other planner or a journal or a notepad or whatever, one place where you capture all of your notes and to-dos. So that's one thing. Start by getting a central storehouse. And then the second thing to start with is deciding on your daily big 3. Get in the practice of setting your daily big 3 at the beginning of each day and focusing on those 3 major priorities, those important things first before you do anything else. Start there, and then you can build into all of the other tools and processes that we talked about today. I know we've got a little bit of time here for Q&A. I wanted to share one last thing, that we are doing a full focus workshop coming up. It's a half-day workshop where we go deeper into all of these topics, and you have time to work on exercises and actually do some of this work in the workshop. So for those of you attending today or watching online, we'd love to offer you 15% off that registration fee, and you can join the waiting list for that half-day workshop. Also, we have a code if you want to get If you want to try a full focus planner, we can get you 10% off of that. So these are certainly not required, but just something I want to make sure that you know that is available to you for attending this presentation or for watching the recording. So to get access to either or both of those, all you have to do is just email me. My email address is there, and Christina will send out the slides as well with my contact information. So Christina, we have a couple minutes here for Q&A.
We do. We have about 5 minutes left. So if you would like to ask a question, down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a reaction button. If you can hit that, that way I can see your hand is up and we don't run into people talking over each other. Or if you'd rather just type a question into the box as well, Courtney can see the chat and we'd be happy to answer those as well. And while we are waiting on questions, I'm going to go ahead and drop a couple of the upcoming events. I'll drop the next top 5 next month in there, which will take place in February. And then we also have our Small Business Success Summit, which TDT is a sponsor of, coming up in March as well. So feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question. Otherwise, you can type it down in the box there too. Courtney, this is great information too to kick off the year.
Thank you. I hope it's helpful to you.
Courtney, I will ask one just because I have heard, obviously, with the uptick in numbers recently, I don't want to even jinx ourselves here, but throwing wrenches in, people out sick, all of that, I have had more entrepreneurs really, really struggling with those wrenches coming in. Talk to us a little bit about when your calendar does blow up, things like that, if you can.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question, because that was something that I struggled with and some of my team members struggled with at first. It's like, well, what's the point of creating an ideal week if it's not going to be realistic? When, why set a big 3 when things come at you? The idea is that when you have a plan for what is high priority for you, it can serve as a filter. So when other things explode, you can say, okay, this is what I plan to do this week, or this is what I plan to do today. Is this thing coming at me, asking for my focus and attention and reaction, more important than the things I already had? And if so, then you change your big 3 and you move one of the things you had to another day in the week. You can certainly shift your priorities. But if it's not, then you have to decide, is this something someone else could do? So it serves as a tool for constantly evaluating all of the opportunities or all of the issues or fires. Because otherwise, if we don't have a plan, we just constantly react. But if we have a plan for what's important, if we've already established what's important, then we have a filter for deciding what is important. It also, I will say, in terms of things blowing up, part of the my morning ritual where I am looking at my calendar for the day and my weekly preview, I'm looking at it for the week ahead. That's where I identify things. It's like, that's not going to work. And so then I start moving things and rescheduling things out for the following week. Like at the time when that got scheduled, that seemed like I had plenty of time, but based on what's on my plate now, that's no longer a priority. So I move that meeting, or I delegate it to somebody else, or I cancel it. And so, but I'm not doing that the morning of. I mean, maybe there's an emergency, but typically what I'm saying is like a week ahead, I'm seeing that and being able to make those changes ahead of time. So it just gives you a filter so that you don't just automatically react. You can view it through the lens of, is this really the most important? And is it mine to do? Is there another way to accomplish that? Good question.
Along the same lines, how about leaders who need things that are urgent but aren't part of your top 3? How do you deal with this?
Yeah, that's another great question. So this is where, if you've already established your priorities, you can go back to your leader. And so we encourage our team members. Our team members use this system and the planner, and we set daily big 3s, weekly big 3s. And so this can allow you to say, okay, these are the 3 things I had planned for today or for this week. Are you okay with me subbing out one of those for what you have asked for? And if so, then they're aligned with your decision, right? And if not, then you can work together to create how you're going to rearrange those priorities. So it gives you a tool to have that conversation. I know that can feel weird, but a lot of times, I will ask my team members to do something and they assume that it means it needs to be done immediately. And really, It doesn't have to be. So what we've gotten into the habit of here is they'll say, well, I try to get better about setting the expectation, but I'm not perfect. I don't always do that. And they'll say, do you need that now? Do you need that today? Or I've got this on my plate for today. Is it okay if that's tomorrow? And I'm absolutely, I didn't mean you had to do it today. So it creates a tool for communication. And if it really is urgent, it can at least let your leader know that it's going to trump something else that you've got, or maybe it's going to expand your workday for the day. And that's something that you have to determine, is that going to work for me, or is there something else that I can delegate? So it forces us to decide, are all of these things mine to do? Or is there some other person who can help with that? It's kind of like, I look at it as that week before you go on vacation, where you've got a finite amount of time to get things done, and you start to get really intentional about, what am I going to do? What do I need to ask somebody for help for? What do I need to delay? Because I'm leaving, like the flight is leaving. So it's really kind of taking that kind of intentionality and the willingness to delegate and the willingness to go to your leaders or your team members and ask for help and collaboration any week, not just the week before you're leaving for vacation. Great question.
Awesome. Well, we are at 10:01, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Courtney, thank you so much for your presentation. Every time I just learned so much for you, and I just value your information and your time. So I did drop a couple links down in the corner if you'd like to join us next month for our top 5. It's a great kind of follow-up to what we were just talking about. We'll be focusing on top ways to achieve those financial goals. So we've just talked about how do you do your time, and we talked about setting goals. So it's kind of spinning off and will be a follow-up to this presentation. And then I did drop in the summit link. So we do have an early bird registration until February 11th at $59 for the full day. Great day to look at those quarterly goals and yearly goals that Courtney talked about today. So we look forward to seeing you very soon. Courtney, thanks again for your time. I did drop her email in as well, and we will see you guys all very soon. Thanks for being here today.